Welcome everyone. Welcome to day 4 of our 7 days Microsoft Azure learning, and today we are going to learn about Azure storage services. There are multiple storage services and which is for the different purposes. We are going to learn about that, and again as always I have couple of demos for the same. And before that, let me know if everyone is able to hear me and see me. And meanwhile, I am going to share my presentation display also so that we can start quickly and we will wrap up within time. I'm looking for some responses if I'm audible properly. So feel free to share so that I make sure that things are working fine from my end. And here I'm going to start with the presentation quickly. If someone is new and joining for the first time, there are three already classes which we have covered. Everything is present on my YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe, watch that, and follow that because we are following step by step, like what are the important steps and important stages to start with. So I started with the basic of generic cloud computing and fundamentals of Microsoft Azure, then Azure networking, and yesterday we covered about Azure compute services, and today we are going to explore about the storage services. So again, you can watch that at any time and feel free to share in your circle as well as using the hashtag learn cloud with me. And let's get started with today's agenda, and feel free to make your own notes because I got a lot of feedback. So I am also trying to improve the presentation part as well as maybe the speed of my delivery. So feel free. I am always looking for the feedback because that is how we all learn from each other. You can drop me a mail or you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn or Twitter. Feel free to reach out to me, guys. Okay. So today's agenda is we will talk about what kind of storage service is available. I will give you some walkthrough about like where each service fit best, and then we will start our demo with the storage account, the security, and something I would like to cover today's agenda about Azure CDN, which is the content delivery network. It can be the part of networking also, but this will fit, I believe, best or maybe easy to explain here. So today I will cover a little bit about Azure CDN and maybe give a quick demo and some other services, which is some says it is not a storage service, cover under the storage service or storage category, but some says yes, it is a part of storage. So let's explore, maybe a couple of minutes we will talk about that. So let's get started. So storage is something that we are using every day in our everyday life, every application, from the mobile, from the cloud storage, like the drives, or in the Apple world iCloud is very famous. So that is also a cloud based storage, but it comes a model of subscription as a service or software as a service. We are going to cover storage from the perspective of, you can say, how it will connected or related with the infra as well as platform as a service, and how we can consume the APIs to build our application on these storage system. So storage is something which is can be independently utilized with your application, regardless whether your application is hosted on Microsoft Azure or not, or it is on premises, or it is some other cloud, or even some traditional hosting provider. Storage is something one of the oldest, and the beautiful part of the storage services is that it can be utilized independently. There is no boundary, there is no those kind of networking things we need to follow. Obviously in advanced level, if we have some kind of compliance and your whole infrastructure is hosted on Microsoft Azure, you will get those kind of flexibility, but everything is open via the REST API, and it can be utilize and integrate with your application easily. So Azure storage come into picture, and which is very highly durable and highly available. We will explore that how the durability factors matter about like what kind of component or the things we need to follow about the getting the durability and high availability, as well as security is something that by default uh, data is encrypted at rest and all those endpoints are https, so even in the transit the data is secure, it is scalable, it is nothing that we need to type something that we want 5 TB 10 TB or something. Again, there are multiple kind of storages we will explore, but this scalability obviously come into picture with each of the category of storage service available on Microsoft Azure. But you can take something like the object storage, which is an unstructured data hosting storage service. It is nearly infinite or nearly unlimited, you can say. You can put even petabytes or exabytes of data. It comes with some its own beautiful cost, but the things are there because we don't need to manage any hardware. Everything is provided by Microsoft Azure. We don't need to build it like VMs. Yesterday we saw that the disk that we need to show that 512 gigabyte or some TB byte, or there is a limit of 32 TB byte of maximum disk size. But in this case everything is managed. We can put unlimited amount of data and it will start growing like as we are putting the data and removing the data. And it supports multiple types which we will explore. And I just write it offer a massive scalable object storage for data objects. A file system is something that traditional we are using the file share in our organization. So a messaging store is something we are using the queue like RabbitMQ, all those such kind of things, which is used to decouple our application to build it, the modernized architecture, so that if one component of application went down or failed due to some reason, the other will not get impact. And this will become, the messaging storage is a glue between which will store the stay, the data and all those things. And something which is not common, but it is from early days of Microsoft Azure storage. It's a NoSQL store, and it is key value attribute store is out of the box provided under the Azure storage account. So let's go to the next. Understand like the storage types. Azure blobs are object storage. Blobs are binary large objects which can be your images, video, or even log data. Log data can be, the key kilobytes file, but the quantity is in millions or billions. So all these come under the blob category, is unstructured data. As your files are the direct comparison of your own file server hosted on premises. If you have any kind of Linux file server where a common area your company is following the common file storage, where all those files are stored about your project, about your company, and that is mounted on your local system, and you can access it with the protocol of SMB or NFS. All those things are available. As your file is a lift and shift kind of, here we don't need to build our server farm, but directly we can start using the Azure files. Azure queue is the service which is a queuing mechanism, the messaging which is providing the capability to decouple our application, and it is serverless, highly scalable, can store a huge amount of messages easily and process it, and even it can store it for, there is some the validity is there or the duration is there. Even our both side input or output is not available till the Azure queue is capable enough to store that amount of data for a couple of days. We will see in our its specific slide. Azure tables is NoSQL key value pair database. There is, it is one of the old one, because you can say it is coming to store, you can say, session data, some kind of configuration. So there we can put or utilize such kind of databases easily. Again, it's a serverless, we will explore, learn more about that. Azure disk is something about the hard disk or SSDs yesterday, which I showed with virtual machine, that because virtual machine need the block or boot disk as well as the data disk. So Azure Disk also comes under the storage type and storage services. So yesterday I showed the demo, and it's supported from 4 GB byte to 32 TB byte. So those all things. So this is a form of our hard disk which will locally connected with our computer systems or servers. The same it is in the form of Azure cloud. And the other services, maybe it's very new or some of may never heard such kind of things. Event hub is something, just try to relate it with real time streaming of data. It is not a video streaming, but the real time IoT sensor data at a massive scale. And if anyone heard about Kafka, Apache Kafka, so that is the managed service out of the box serverless provided by Microsoft Azure. Its name as Event Hub. And Service Bus is again on the queue side, because Azure queues are a bit older and it has some limitation. So the enhanced version of the Azure queue is Service Bus. It is gluing the two component or the multiple components. It can follow one is to one or one is to many kind of pattern to provide the data, and it is coming with lot of new capabilities. So we are going to mainly focus today on the blobs first four, because Azure Disk yesterday we covered, it is nothing more on that part. But you can configure even if you want RAID 0 or RAID 1, that is also possible. That is purely on the operating system level to get more and more maximized performance and the backup part. And Event Hub, everything this come with the use case of IoTs, or very highly when data is flowing and we need to process the data in real time manner. So storage feature, storage, when we will create a storage account, everything start with the storage account. Even the previously when the storage account V2 was not available, the Azure disk was the part of storage account, because when they come up with managed disk, Microsoft Azure put the differentiation that disk will remain its own element, its own resource in Microsoft Azure, and storage account is a different resource. And in storage account, now they are providing a different kind of storages, which comes the standard and premium. So premium only support the VM disk only. Again, the SSD, the standard, the super fast or ultra, something new that is coming into picture on the platform. So premium premium SKU only support this VM disk only, and the standard is providing all those as your blob, file, queue, table. Right now, coming on the durability and redundancy part, while when we configure our storage account, we need to follow, or we need to select how the replication will happen. So let's recall a little bit about our day one, about the infrastructure, how the regions are built. So locally redundant 3 copy is, if I selected, it will set up, or it will do a 3 copy automatically for the durability and availability purpose. Or you can say whatever the data we will write, it will obviously automatically write 3 times in that data center. And if remember from yesterday availability set, we talk about like a logical separation of a physical hardware where our data will store. So this local redundant thing is there, because again, make a note that not every Microsoft Azure region support availability zone at this point of time. Wherever the availability zone is available, there we will get the second option of zone redundant copy or style. But if it is not there, then we will see the local redundant, geo, and read only. I will explain the next two quickly. So the first one is, it will store the 3 copy locally. If let's say one physical hardware failed or rack failed, the storage system failed, it will automatically detect the failure part. And but we will not, as an end user, we will not face such kind of downtime, and we will not face that our storage is down. We will start getting served from the another copy, and it is synchronously happening in the local redundant case, as well as we are not getting charged for these 3 copy. It is covering under the cost of whatever cost per GB Microsoft is putting as their public list pricing. So we can refer that what is the per GB cost for local redundant copy. It is not that we need to multiply by 3 to get the cost. So zone redundant is something whenever there is a availability zone, it will put the three copy in the three different availability zone. And the geo redundant is something as a previous design of Microsoft Azure physical infrastructure. It comes with the region pair. Let's say the West US is connected with US, and even the for the Singapore one, Singapore is a one, and Hong Kong is its region pair because it falls under, you can say, not the same geography, not the same country, but some kind of laws are same. That is why Microsoft decided to bring this. In India there are three different regions. One is in West India, Central India, and Southern India or South India. So those are in the same country, so region pair are like that. So in case of, let's say, the whole one region went down, so the backup of other region will be able to survive our failover of a one region. And important part here is the replication happen in a asynchronous way. It is not the real time. Let's say our one or primary region is the West India, which is a Mumbai one, and our pair region or the backup region is the West India, the Central India, which is Pune one. So it is not that the Pune copy is immediately available. It will take few seconds. Again, it is not that too much of time, but maybe few seconds. So it's a asynchronous replication happening, and failover is purely fully managed by Microsoft Azure in case of the region 1, which is our primary region, went down due to some kind of concern or issues. And the last important here is read access geo redundancy. Sorry for the typo. I will change and before publishing, sharing with you guys. So it's read access geo redundant storage. It is something that following the same region pair style, but we can read it from our secondary region. Let's say we have a region pair, something which is maybe hundreds of miles or 500 miles apart from each other. In case of, let's say, US, one is a west coast, one is a east coast. We want that our east coast user will read a data from the east region, which will give a less latency. Obviously, again, here we need to think about the asynchronization, how quickly the replication happen from our primary, which is the west, to the east one. But there is a possibility we can provide the read only geo access for those read only from the read only region. And to access all these, there are multiple SDKs available, all those famous and common languages like .NET, Java, Android, Node.js, Python, PHP, Ruby, and more. Even C++ is also there, which is providing the Azure storage SDK. So you can use it, you can understand how to integrate it with your application. Just giving you an example, let's say we have an application which is storing our images or some other, we are getting or collecting the content from our end user, and everything is stored in the slash upload folder, which is hosted on the same hard disk or the same storage where our code is residing. Now think that these images is working different than the code, because the block storage concept is different than the object storage. And if you heard about random IO, random input output, and sequential input output, these are the really important two words. It is not specific to cloud, but a generic terms. Feel free to explore it from your side. I am explaining, talking again, random IO, random input output, and sequential input output. This is a homework, you can explore it from your side. So these images or the video files, it follows, it is not reading the block randomly. So that is where these object storage thing come into picture, which is optimize and best for serving images or putting images, video files. Or that is why it is mentioned that large binary large objects, that is why it is called as a blob. The same, the database will not work from the object storage, because databases works in a different way, and it need a block kind of storage, where let's say our join query something ran, and it will run on a different part of our disk to collect the data, to run the query, and to give us the output. So try to imagine and try to understand from that area. That is possible. You can offload your that upload folder to Azure storage. It is purely possible. It is via secure HTTPS method, and that is where these SDKs come into picture. Whether you don't want to use or don't want to fully adopt the cloud, or don't want to host your whole infrastructure, application infrastructure on cloud, but this is the entry. This is independent of anything. You can consume it any way and try to utilize. I highly recommend make your architectures like that, because code is not growing like every day, but maybe images or videos, all those things are growing every day as per your application traffic and uses. Now, very specific, we are going to cover these storages quickly, and there are a couple of demos I would like to share. So blob storages, as I mentioned, is a text and binary data, regardless of any extension, whether PDF or any extension dot anything. It will not give a error to store. It will upload and it will start, store there, and you will, as a customer, you will start getting charged for amount of data, and the charges happen in the near round gigabyte cost. It is like something, if you put a 200 megabyte of file, but you will be get fully charged for 1 gigabyte. That is a one caveat or catch need to be remembered. The cost will happen in the near round figure of gigabyte. So keep remember that how these things will work. So this is very optimal for streaming videos and audios. Let's say any video platform where the multiple videos ratios are there, so we can serve it from by putting the CDN in front of the storage. Otherwise, our server have again a capacity as well as a bandwidth limit. That is the important part. Each of the server size or instance size having its own bandwidth and throughput capacity, the maximum how it can serve. But here with the beauty of CDN or integration of CDNs are something like, you can say, serve it as tens of terabytes per second, kind of a global level. If I'm talking about the services, there are multiple CDN services apart from Azure CDN. You can search about, there are very famous for, especially optimized for live streaming, especially optimized for on demand data serving. So I believe most of we people have used somehow the CDN in our application. A very common, even when I started with Cloudflare, a free of cost service to boost your WordPress performance. I believe most of people we heard that and we have somehow utilized. Here it is coming in a more optimized manner, getting more control if we want to cache the dynamic content, what kind of, let's say, some cookies we need to pass, or some very private content only to pass our paid user of application. All those things can be configured at CDN level. Coming to the storage, it is a very flat hierarchy. It shows like the folder structure, but it has nothing to do with the folder structure. It can be a flat hierarchy. There is no nested folders or such kind of thing, but here it is called as a container. I will explain more about the containers while our demo. And now important feature is there are multiple tier for blob storage. There are multiple thing of tiering, like storage account have a 4 different kind of storage, which is a blob, file, queue, and table. Now each of these have something specific. The tiering hot is something that frequent usable data, right, that your application is serving lot of images, and it need to be served like, let's say, millions of users. So hot storage or hot blob storage will come into picture, because it that data need to be served quickly, it need to be read quickly, or let's say it need to be served more quickly or cache quickly. So there it, or it need to be always available. Cool is come into picture where some infrequent data requirement is there. Let's say your blob or your files will be only once in a 30-day or once in a 2 month kind of access is there. And archival is, that is another a big beautiful case for starting any company's cloud journey. If they are looking for archiving or they are looking for backing up their data on cloud, there the beauty of archival storage are coming into picture. The way hot is expensive one but always available, and a quickly available. Cool is something little bit cheaper than the hot one, but there is some kind of first bite, first time to bite is little bit longer than the hot one. And archival is something the most cheapest one, but it is the purpose is to store for the long term the data which is not required or only required in the case of any uh, disaster recovery or some kind of audit or compliance is there, that you need to store the data, let's say for couple of years, and when the audit will happen they want to check whether you are putting this mechanism or not, there this archival storage come into picture. And hot is there is no there is no bar that we need to follow. It can be anytime updated, deleted, and we will pay only for what we have stored and consumed. Cool is something that there is a minimum 30 days period, that if we opt for the 30 days cool storage tier, that files need to be at least stay 30 days in that tier to get that pricing benefit. Otherwise it can be much expensive than the hot one. The archive is something that 180 day of period that data need to be place in that storage. If we remove it prior to that, there will be some not a penalty but the charges in the simple words. It call as a penalty, again the different ideas to thoughts, but there is something very clearly mentioned on Microsoft Azure documentation that how the pricing benefit and what are the feature for which tier. Let's move forward. That file share I mentioned that it is a shared service or shared storage service. We always have such kind of thing in our on-premises system where, let's say, drive Z is mounted in our system and some kind of common document presentation, all those data is there and which we access whenever required, and it is mounted with hundreds of system in the in our offices. So this is the scenario where the file storage come into picture. Even this file storage can be mounted directly to our on-premises system. If I create a file storage share, there is a PowerShell command and there is a command and the authentication method that I can directly connect it with my laptop, and let's say I want to put a data, it will be automatically start syncing to the Azure cloud region, whichever I will opt while creating this file storage mount. So it follows that server messaging block protocol 3.0 and HTTPS, and it is the best use case for the lift and shift. Again, the security part here is whatever we are following the on premises, let's say there are 10 folders, 5 folders is only used by some management people, and the development team or some IT team will not have access to those folders. That can also possible here with the help of Azure AD. We can put our all those mechanism, all those security metrics, everything is possible. I will show a quick demo that how to create this storage mount. It comes with the limitation of a single mount can be of 5 terabyte. The same here, I would like to say a single file can be of 4.75 terabyte. A single file, I am saying a single file, let's say one video file you are recording, that is the maximum limit for a single file. It is not the overall storage limit. Storage limit can be again in some petabytes, but a single file I'm talking about here is 4.75 terabyte. The file storage mount is overall is 5 terabyte. I will show in that demo while creating. Now talking about queue as I mentioned is used to decouple the thing. Let's say your web tier as and your application tier, and you want some time that application tier will handle certain number of requests, but you don't want that you will start losing your request from your front tier. So the decoupling part come into picture. These storage queues or queue will store that maybe a metadata, because there is a limit of how much the data size or how much the data size it can store at any point of time. So it will store those requests, and whenever it will get a signal from this is from the application tier, and it will pass and application tier will start processing, and whatever the logic for the application is, it is happening. And again, as I mentioned in the introduction, this is how the architecture start putting on the new new kind of, the not a cloud native but new kind of the architecture best practices, that if a one component or one service or one component or one tier is facing a problem, the other will not get impact. That is a big problem with the monolithic, like there is a one server, we have put everything on that server. Let's say a storage system failed, so it means the overall application went down. So that is what these kind of small services but very powerful come into picture, and it will start helping. And now in a single storage account we can create a multiple queues inside a single storage account. The overall capacity of those multiple queues, a total of, or the aggregation of all those queues, maybe a 10 queue or 20 queue or 100 queue, is 20k messages per second. It can hold up to 20k messages, 20,000 messages per second, the size of 1 kilobyte. That is an important part here to understand if you are planning to use the storage queue, and this is a hard limit, it can't be increased. And a single queue can process max up to 2000 messages per second. So these are the some small limits or small things we always need to keep in our mind while designing the storage solution and utilizing all this. And by default 7 days of durability or duration of a message is there. We can again play with that whether we want to increase, or even if we want to infinite, we can define our TTL as a -1. So it will never expire, our message will always remain there until unless it will not process by the other end or whatever the logic is there, right? And the message format will be anything, and the maximum size of that message is 64 kilobyte. So you need to do some math about that, what kind of processing and what kind of load or what kind of things going to happen with your application. According to that you can design your queue strategy. The same with table storage. So it is a NoSQL schema less key value pair store. It supports again the multiple tables. Inside a table we will create our container, or you can say the inside a table we will create our container in which our rows and every data resides. And we can, like queues, we can create a multiple those container or tables. And again the total of the aggregation of the all those table is 20,000 rows per second, like the reading limit. And the reading limit or the maximum this much we can put, and this is the hard limit. And the data size, I would like to highlight, the data size can be up to 500 terabytes for queue as well as for table storage. But these are the performance of read and write metrics, that how much 20k, this is the read metric, that from the overall from a single storage account, regardless of how many storage table accounts is there, 20k is the max read limit. And for the single table it is 2000 rows per second. So it contains a multiple property while we will create, and it can support up to 255 property. Let's say there is a one, I want some name property, so name, key and value, and there will be 255 values we can add. And but 252 will be available because three are reserved. One is the partition key and row key and timestamp. It will be by default reserved. So we can add 252 more properties in our table. So security for each and everything, because all those feature, all those four services which I explained, it covers under a single storage account. Everything is encrypted at rest and transit, and we can even use our own key management service to access all these things. Shared access signature is something that if you want to provide access for some limited time as well as with some limited kind of authorization, whether that guy or the user will do the read only part or read and write only, and for only for the files or queues or only for the blobs, we will see in the demo about this. And this RBAC roles are, we can put it from the Azure side, that who can access the storage account from the admin perspective, right? by default everything is private, nothing is open until unless we will not make it open. I will show this thing in demo. So let's start with our demo. That let me show. So this is our account in which we are playing from last couple of days. So storage can be found again from the shortcut or the search here, or you can find it from the all services. So there are multiple ways, and storage is very common. Again, it will show the storage classic also, which is the old Azure service management model, which is no longer in use. So follow this as your storage. Let's create our first account and try to play with something. I will try to put some data and see how we can. The resource group is a logical container where our data will reside. I have deleted the yesterday one content. So I'm going to create today, and the name can be anything. The storage account name need to be unique because it will give us a DNS to access if we want to make our objects or files publicly available. So let me try with something. Storage, if storage Chirag something, yeah, it is available. Again, the region we can choose nearby for me is this Southeast Asia. As I mentioned, with the standard here you can see, with the standard it will provide us all four services like blob, file, queue and table. But with the premium it will only give us the hard disk part, and that is also only locally redundant. It is not, it's a SSD for the virtual machines. So here you can see the difference. If I select with the standard, we will get our options which I explained about the durability and how we can select the redundancy. So I'm going to select with the blob storage because I want to create the those four services rather than the hard disk one. So here it is showing that what kind of, again, as a innovation, continuous innovation and enhancement going on. That is the beauty of cloud. So storage v2 is the latest one, which is giving the more and more power, more and more capacity, because the previous generation have some kind of lesser capacity limit. Now this v2 is coming with the more enhanced version and the capacity. So here we can select these four which I explained, the locally redundant and the zone redundant, Zio. These are the another two which is coming. That is where again, as the Microsoft is improving their own infrastructure, they are putting the new features here. So I am going to stick with the locally redundant one. I don't want to pay too much. And keep remember that with these selection, the prices may vary, and it is not that too expensive with each tier, but maybe few cent per GB difference will be there. So keep check the documentation always for the latest pricing details, right? And cool and hot I explained about. And if I want the archival, there I need to choose about this blob storage. It will provide the archival support also. So we are going to do with the hot one. So networking, as explained in the day of our network, that in the storage account, if we want that it will be only accessible from our specific IP or the virtual network, here we can select these these things can be selected even at a later stage. So let's move ahead. Here we are, it is asking that couple of more information. The soft delete is something kind of a versioning in some other cloud platform. If you know about some versioning of the object, so the meaning of soft delete is, let's say incidentally I delete some file, but later I found that it is required, so it will not permanently get deleted. There is some kind of time is there, let's say a 30 days of period when Microsoft Azure will permanently delete it. So we can opt for that if it is required. And large file share, as I mentioned, there is some file share limit. Even we can read that if we want some 100 TB level of file share, or the shared storage is required to do our sharing with our whole company system, so we can opt for that. It comes with its some cost. So keep always check the documentation or the pricing, that how these will impact your overall budget, right? So secure transfer is always we want it will happen from HTTP only, and this is for the data lake. So this comes under especially the analytics part. We are not going to cover that because it is bit intermediate and advanced level. I want to give a basic level of glimpse like how the things are working and where it will fit best. But if you're looking to create the data lake or analytics or data warehouse, or where the Hadoop and all these things come into picture, so this is the place and the best storage. Again, a petabyte style storage, which is supported unlimited amount of files and storage space. So we can utilize, again, specific use cases here. So we are not going to put any tag, and let's see, it will create in few seconds, and then we will start exploring more on that. Meanwhile, guys, you can put your question around if storage services, if anything you are trying to explore, and if you have any query, feel free to put in the comments. So here we can see it is created, and let's go to our storage account. And here we can see we got our 4 features, which I explained. The containers is a blob storage. The file share is that a file storage share, tables and queues as explained. Now let's explore a little bit about these options. Storage Explorer is something you can download it locally and connect and use it, a local application, and use it. I believe I have installed. Let me check if I have in my system. I can show a quick walkthrough that this is the storage explorer. Like, it can connect to my storage, and rather than the browser base, it is a local application base. I can put the data, I can upload the data from my local storage every time. So it is just loading, and they have come up this feature. Let's say I have some data already, I want to see it from here directly, so it will give me the option to check all those things. So here you can see this is such kind of interface. You can install it locally and play it with. So access keys are important part, because it will help us to connect with our SDKs or programmatic method. So you can see there are the 2 keys provided. Let's say one is compromised. You can change. Meanwhile, for, you can say, for the staging purpose, you can put the second key and regenerate the first one, so that there will be no application downtime and all those things. And we can change the tier of, even after creating our replication, it's possible to change also. Again, there are some different use case for that. So we can see these are the endpoints from where we can see. Oh, okay, sorry, my mistake, that we can't change the tier. Once we need to really make sure that how we replicate it is showing that what kind of endpoints we can get to access each one of our storage service. So course is something like concept, just that we, if we have not explored this, believe there is some entry to right now. But meanwhile, free to put in the comments. So this is very common. You call your, which is hosted some kind of attack and all this. There was some network error happened, guys. Sorry about that. So this course feature is something that we can integrate with our application to access our storage. Let's say our application is hosted in some different domain or subdomain or something like that, and web browser think that we are trying to do some kind of attack. There, this course feature come into picture. So here guys, here we can see that we can change the replication. I was a bit confused about that geo replication and this thing. geo application, I believe it was showing that about our region pair, because I have selected the locally one. That is why it is not showing that what is my region pair or where it is get replicated. So that was the mechanism. Sorry about that, guys. But here in the configuration, we can see we can change from locally to geo to the read only, and we can play with that according to our requirement. So encryption is something by default is there. If we want to change or manage by ourselves or using KMS or our own encryption key, here we can configure that. Shared access signature is something, as I mentioned, that we want some time bound access. If we want to provide, we can select for which service we can play, and for which level we need to provide the access. We will maybe quickly go through the same. Okay, quickly I want to cover that this is a beautiful thing about it. Can host the static website. Let's say you have some kind of static engine using Hugo, or maybe a plain simple HTML and CSS website, rather than hosting it on any server. Because again, whether it's a very small server or even some kind of free server will come with its kind of limitation or some free service. And if even it's a small server, it will cost something. But static sites are not having a huge size, right? You can directly host it, and the beauty of this thing is it can scale at any level. That is the important part. Because if you put your static hosting, and it will be front ended by CDN, it is the best combination. So you can try to start your journey like that. You can put your static websites there, maybe your own personal, let's say, portfolio. You have domain, it is supported the your custom domain also. So you can play it here easily. Put your static site. I also like that. I put my own domain chiragnayar.com, and one pager, one HTML template, just modified with the information which I want to show, and use it here. And it's working like a charm, right? So now these services or these settings specific to our each of our storage service, like a blob file. So containers, as I mentioned, we have not created. Let's create a container and maybe try to put some data. So by default it is private, but we have a access, we have a capability to put or select what level or what kind of access we can provide. So anonymous read access is something that it is open to the public. If someone will have our the container name and the DNS, I will show that how to make this thing public. So custom domain, if I want to make it with custom with my own domain, so that in my application it will, let's say my images are here, I want to showcase that images dot my domain name.com, rather than it will show the name of the endpoints which I mentioned here, the endpoints. Otherwise it will show something like that. The storage chirag is my this blob storage name, and this is the overall endpoint name provided by Microsoft, that blob.co.windows.net. If I want to change it with my images.chiragnayar.com, so this is a place where we can do all these kind of things. So these all are the option. Again, soft delete, as I mentioned, that versioning part, and if mistakenly accidentally we have deleted, we can enable it and we can recover that data. And CDN is something, the beautiful part, we are going to cover that. And life cycle management, as your search is something which, if we want, if we, let's say, millions of object, and if we want to index something to search quickly, so it is based out of some solar. So it is the Apache Solar is an open source project which provide all these indexing and searching quickly at a millions of level. So you can integrate it, that you can put your indexes, that what you want to index, so that it will search quickly. And lifecycle management is something which you can create a rule that, as I mentioned, there are multiple tier of hot, cool, archival. Here with the automatic way we can set up that, let's say, when the file is arrived at our storage or the blob storage, it will stay 30 days in our hot tier, and after 30 days it will move to our cool tier, and for 6 months it will stay for the cool tier, and after that it will go for the archival, that we are no longer needed, but for the audit and compliance purposes we need. So that is where these kind of things come into picture. Now let's quickly create our first container we have created. Let me try to see. Let me try to put some data here. I believe I have the presentation on. So this is our today's presentation, and I have uploaded it here, and it is right now as a hot, as I selected that it is hot. So let me see whether if I can able to access. Here you can see this is the URL or endpoint I got to access. If it is with the custom domain, it will show as a custom. So here you can see it is giving the error that we are not able to access. Even you can try it from your side. But now let's change the tier and let's try to see if we can access it or not. Let me try to change its property and let me put it uh, on this blob under some kind of public access. Here you can see. Now let me try if I will be able to read the access or not. Again, it will may take, yeah, here you can see, because it's a PPT and not that specific extension that it will open. So it downloaded directly here. So as soon as I put this, here you can see it is replicated. Now the settings are replicated. The more time I will put this URL, the PPT will be downloaded. You can see. So this is how these access tier and all those things are working. And we can put all those and unlimited storage. At this level, even the access policies are here. And even if we want, we can put our shared access special this feature that if I want that if anyone is having even my access keys, they will be able to do or access my storage account, my storage, my files till whatever the options we have selected here. Let's say I want only at a container and object level, only read, no write, even no delete. List is always required for the portal. No create, no update. From the time I can select some kind of my specific, let's say my time, my own time zone. It is +8. So, and if even more I want that only from the specific IPs it will be allowed, I can specify that. Let me change some time that I want this to be available 10:30 p.m., which is maybe 8 to 9 minutes from the time when I will save this. And this is the string it is created. So from here I can access this. So for the next 9 minutes, I will be able to access in this manner. After that, it will not be available. And it will be because if another thing is, if it will be get private, then only this will work much better. Because if the object is public, then maybe this will even not a good option to select. So keep remember all these things, guys. These are the small part which is important. And the firewall part, as I mentioned, on our network class also we can make use of this thing. Right now I don't have any network. Let's say I'm putting some random IP. Let's say it will be only available to this IP. This is my IP it is showing, but I don't want that my IP will access. Let me update this and then we will be able to see some kind of issue. And I believe it is saved. And let's see if we will be able to access our storage. Here you can see, because I have put explicitly that IP will be able to access this storage account and this container where the PPT is hosted, it is giving the error again. We can see we have no authorization or no access to see even this object. So let me change this firewall part, and I don't want this IP only. Even I can select specific if the virtual network. Right now there is no virtual network existed in this account, so let's stick with this thing. And apart from that, let's go to see the file storage quickly. So we can create our file share. Here we need to give some name, let's say Azure class, and here it will give our limit, that because we have not selected the large file share, which is up to 100 TB byte, it will give only the option to max of this 5 TB byte. So we can create this. Again, it will cost for 5 TB byte, so make sure how we are going to use, and here it will give the option that how we want to connect it. Let's say if I want, I can even select and run it in my, the PowerShell and all those things, and my Z drive will be here. I need to do some kind of this port work, which I have not done before. So, but it is as simple as that. Again, depend upon the network connectivity from your on premises to the cloud, and the bandwidth matter. According to that, it will perform. But if it is your system is already, or infrastructure is already in cloud, and then you are putting this in your virtual network access, then it will be much faster, because everything will be go through Microsoft Azure backbone. So these are the small things, guys, which I really want to show today. Now I am open for the question answer. So let me see if there is any question, guys. There is lot of thing, because storage is something which is a primary thing, for every cloud deployment. So not only, even storage is something, even you are not playing with anything, by default there will be some storage accounts will get created. So try to understand which storage service or which kind of storage will fit best of your use case. According to that, you can pick that is why there are multiple kind of storages. More, you can even search about like what categories lying in, because for the big data stuff, storage is always a big requirement, and the massive storage required, that is where the cloud is adding the value, that we don't need to worry about the putting the hardware, building a rack, putting the hard disk, configuring RAID, and all those performance metrics. Everything comes as the out of box, guys. So keep try to play with this. So any question, guys? Because otherwise we can end. Most of the thing I covered. This is what I have prepared for today, and tomorrow is explore about like how the database will work. One question came, it is something related to VM. Okay, the which VM series are certified in Azure cloud by SAP? Again, there are multiple series. Specifically for the high memory, there is a E series and DSV2 V3 series. These are certified. Again, you need to know for which SAP application you want to use. For HANA, there are specific. For the development purpose, there are specific. So you can choose, you can think that, better I recommend, because this is always the documentation is always up to date. So I worked on SAP use case. There we have selected this E series, that is why I remember, and this DSV2 for the application purposes, and NetWeaver, all those things come into picture. I recommend that you just have a documentation. It's a very clear documentation given, that which series are certified for using the SAP application as well as the databases. So Anand is asking how to add this blob storage to VM. So how to add, if I understand, is there is nothing that storage need to be storage or blob need to be part of this storage account. Your VM can access using the access keys, or your the SDK method. There also the access keys are required. If you want to download it, that is maybe the logic you can put. But the idea is that rather than putting your objects on VM itself, offload it to the storage, because this thing is very specific for that. All right, I missed something that about CDN. So CDN, while showing the settings, CDN option was there. You can put the CDN there, and you can utilize it easily, and it will be directly connected on your storage account, and that is where the beauty of CDN as with this blob storage come into picture, to serve your data as quickly as possible. Is the VM and storage service should be in same geolocation? Yes, it will be much better to provide the latency, and again the networking part, guys. Networking is something that it will be the private, And to access, because I explain about the network, the public zone services. So this storage service is a public zone service. If you want to access it privately, you need to create the endpoint from the network side, from your vnet. Then vnet need to be accessed privately in your own in the same region, until unless again the peering and all these come into picture. But yes, it is recommended that everything will reside same. Otherwise it's a rest base. It may happen, as I mentioned, that it's an independent resource. Even you are running your application somewhere, you want to use as your storage, you can use it easily by integrating. It will go through the public internet and those https endpoints. So it is recommended, if you are using everything on Azure, both need to be reside on the same region and the in the same geo. It will give much more flexibility, the private connectivity, and your bandwidth cost will be lower, because if it goes through the public internet, egress charges are always there, guys. So keep remember all those things. So, all right, guys, see you tomorrow for the database classes. That's for today. And I believe everyone enjoyed about the storage. It's a very common and very useful. It is ever growing thing. So keep always eyes on the documentation and the latest updates. Take care. See you tomorrow.